Good evening, gentle traveler. Before you let drowsiness wrap its quiet shawl around your shoulders, we are going to glide, slowly, softly, into a century thick with wood smoke, superstition, and the scent of damp wool. Our destination is not a fairy tale castle sparkling with banners. It is the ordinary world that existed beneath those towers, the daily grind of the people who kept that world creaking forward. If at any point you feel a grateful tug toward your mattress, your toothbrush, or your thermostat, feel free to whisper a thank you to the 21st century. And if these winding midnight rambles suit your mood, you can gently tap the like button or subscribe for more slow history, only if it feels right. Leave a comment telling us where you're drifting off from and what hour the clock shows in your corner of the globe. I read them while the kettle cools. Now draw the curtains. Let the room settle into hush. Perhaps switch on a small fan for that soothing background sigh. And follow me. We are stepping back to the year 1307. Congratulations, you have survived the night. A night, mind you, that was far from peaceful. A nocturnal battle against unseen forces and inescapable discomforts. Sadly, everything that lives inside your straw tick mattress has survived too. Your bed, if one can even dignify it with such a title, is a tattered linen sack stuffed with last year's chaff. The discarded stalks and husks of grain that have lost their warmth and begun to compact into a lumpy, unyielding mass. It is not merely a place of rest, but a vibrant ecosystem in miniature, alive with the incessant, maddening activity of fleas, mites, and the occasional wandering beetle. These tiny, persistent tormentors are your constant companions, their relentless bites a subtle yet undeniable backdrop to your fitful sleep. The tick itself, thin and worn, lies directly on rough, uneven floorboards that remember every spilled ale, every dropped crumb, and every candle drip. These are not polished, smooth surfaces, but rather crudely hewn planks, warped by moisture, splintered in places, and bearing the indelible marks of countless bare feet shuffling across them in the gloom. Each knot in the wood seems to hold a silent memory of sleepless nights and hurried mornings, of whispered prayers and silent anxieties. The air, even indoors, carries a faint, persistent scent, the earthy aroma of damp earth permeating from the ground below, the lingering, slightly sour smell of unwashed bodies, and the faint, residual scent of last night's meager cooking fire. Now a cold, dead ash. The first sound you hear, an unceremonious herald of a new day, is the parish bell clanging 6 times. There is no snooze button, no gentle melodic marimba ringtone to ease you into consciousness, just the brutal jarring clang of iron crashing against iron, its vibrations echoing through the stillness. Its echo rolls through the valley like a cold tide, seeping into every corner of the village, and informs you with an undeniable authority that morning prayers begin in half an hour. This sound is a harsh, insistent summons, a brutal awakening that leaves no room for lingering dreams or the luxury of a slow ascent from slumber. It penetrates the thin walls of your dwelling, a metallic assault on the senses that signals the relentless march of another day, another cycle of toil. You squint upward, your eyes still heavy with sleep, and a thin, gray light begins to filter through gaps in the thatch. The roof above you, a crude affair of woven straw and reeds, is thinning under the persistent assault of rain rot, its integrity compromised. The chill breeze greeting your cheeks, therefore, is not poetic, a gentle whisper of nature, but merely practical ventilation, albeit an unwelcome one, hinting at the pervasive cold that penetrates even the supposed sanctuary of your home. Privacy? A concept so alien, so utterly unheard of, it might as well be a tale from another world. You, your parents, siblings, perhaps a total of 5 or 6 souls, along with 2 clucking chickens and a goat, the family is boarding for the neighbor. All share one single rectangular room. This space is not merely cramped, it is a living, breathing microcosm of your entire existence, where every breath, every rustle, every intimate sound is a shared experience. There's barely enough room for everyone to lie down, let alone move freely or carve out a moment of solitude. The animals, far from being just livestock, are integral, if pungent, members of the household, adding their own unique bouquet to the already dense atmosphere. The earthy smell of the goat, the faint, acrid ammonia of chicken droppings. When you swing your legs over the edge of your straw tick, your souls meet either the squelching mud that seeped in under the crudely constructed door during the night, or dusty, dry straw liberally sprinkled with goat droppings. It depends entirely on the vagaries of the weather. Either way, today's first sensation is a raw, unyielding texture, a visceral reminder of your immediate, unvarnished connection to the earth. There's no soft rug or warm slippers here, just the undeniable reality of the cold, often soiled, ground beneath your bare feet. You are 23 years old, a comfortable middle age by village standards, where life is a swift, brutal river that washes away the weak before their time. Your back cracks like a dry branch each time you straighten, a symphony of protesting bones and overworked muscles. Your knees grind with a dull, persistent ache that speaks of years spent kneeling in fields. And your teeth already ache with a misery we'll visit later, a silent testament to poor diet and non-existent hygiene. But the parish bell has called, its iron voice summoning you. The sun is crawling up behind the familiar hedgerows, painting the sky with the promise of another arduous day. And you have, against all odds, survived long enough to feel stiff again. Each movement is a slow, deliberate act, accompanied by the creak and protest of overworked joints, a body already showing the profound wear and tear of a life lived close to the earth. The prospect of another day of back-breaking labor stretches before you, an endless vista of toil and hardship. Yet the instinct to survive, to simply keep going, propels you forward, a silent testament to the enduring human spirit. The pressure in your bladder, an undeniable biological imperative, is no respecter of era or social standing. Relief awaits somewhere. If you are among the 90% of the population who toil the land as farmers, your humble household owns a close stool. In truth, a splintered, rudimentary bucket, lurking discreetly behind the hut. This is not some carefully crafted wooden commode with a lid designed for comfort or even basic aesthetics, but a crude, often leaking vessel, perhaps just a repurposed barrel or a roughly hewn wooden box with a hole crudely cut into it. Its very presence signifies a pragmatic compromise between the undeniable needs of the body and the stark, limited resources available. The night's deposits have filled it nearly to the brim, a vile concoction that, in the morning chill, acquires a thin layer of frost on the rim, glistening like sugar on the worst pastry imaginable. The sight and the pungent, cloying smell are an immediate assault on the senses, a brutal, unvarnished reminder of the raw, unsanitized reality of medieval life. The cold, crisp air bites sharply at your exposed skin, making the entire act even more uncomfortable, a fleeting yet intensely unpleasant moment of vulnerability. You do what must be done, holding your breath against the noxious fumes, then perform the daily, deeply unglamorous ritual. Hoist the sloshing, heavy mixture, duck out the low doorway designed to keep warmth in and unwanted creatures out, and, with a guttural yell of warning, "Where below?" hurl the slurry onto the communal lane. The lane answers with a sickly, echoing splash. This isn't a secluded garden or a designated sanitary waste area. It's the very path that leads to your home and, crucially, to the fields where you labor. A communal thoroughfare, used by all. The warning cry is not a mere courtesy, but a dire necessity. A desperate last-ditch attempt to avoid drenching an unsuspecting neighbor or passerby who might be heading to the well or the market. The splattering sound, the lingering, pervasive odor that rises from the damp earth of the lane all contribute to a constant low-level assault on the senses, a persistent, inescapable reminder of the utter lack of sanitation. Flies, even in cooler weather, are drawn to the damp, odorous patches like iron filings to a magnet, buzzing lazily around, adding their own irritating presence to the morning tableau. In towns where space is at an even greater premium and buildings rise higher, the process is identical except for its vertical trajectory. Chamber pots filled during the night sale with a surprising grace from upstairs windows. Imagine walking through a bustling medieval town, the narrow, unpaved streets filled with the clamor of vendors hawking their wares, the lowing of animals, and the hurried footsteps of people going about their business, only to have the unseen contents of a chamber pot arc down from above. A dark, unwelcome projectile. The danger of a direct hit, a sudden, disgusting drenching, is a very real, very unpleasant part of urban existence, fostering a constant state of wary vigilance. Street vendors learn to shout their wares with one eye skyward, and pedestrians often hug the walls of buildings, seeking what little shelter they can find to minimize their exposure to this aerial assault. The gutters, if they exist at all, are not designed for drainage, but serve as open sewers, teeming with human and animal waste, attracting an unholy host of vermin, rats, mice, and swarms of flies that thrive in the filth. In castles, those grand, imposing bastions of power, one may find a slightly more refined, yet equally unappetizing system. Nobles may sit on a stone seat protruding from the wall, the aptly named garderobe, whose drop chute empties directly into the moat below. While seemingly more advanced than a mere bucket, these conveniences are far from pleasant. The stone seat is perpetually cold, chilling the occupant to the bone, and the open chute allows a constant, chilling draft and the unbearable stench from below to rise into the very walls of the castle. A grim anecdote of medieval warfare reveals a truly unpleasant freshness to the term backdoor invasion. Enemy sappers occasionally climb up those very chutes during sieges, emerging, no doubt, covered in filth, but inside the castle walls. Regardless of social rank, from the lowliest peasant to the most powerful lord, the latrine is always cold, always public, even if only to other family members or guards, and always scented like an alchemist's failure, a vile, noxious concoction of human waste, decay, and stagnant, fetid air that lingers stubbornly. And now for the finishing touch, wiping. Options are as crude as they are unappealing. You might use handfuls of rough straw, torn rags, if you're fortunate enough to have any to spare. Moss if it's the brief, merciful warmth of summer, or if the local lord recently taxed your rag supply, leaving you destitute, nothing at all. The choices are all equally unappealing and contribute to persistent discomfort, skin irritation, and the inevitable spread of disease. The straw is coarse and abrasive, leaving behind painful scratches. The rags, if available, are often already soiled or rough, offering little relief. Moss, while softer, is not always available, and its dampness can leave you feeling clammy. The idea of using nothing at all is a truly grim prospect, one that highlights the stark lack of even the most basic hygiene. You now, perhaps with a shudder of understanding, begin to comprehend why the custom of handshakes, a seemingly innocuous gesture in your modern world, would remain centuries from widespread popularity. The very notion of intimate physical contact with others, especially the hands, would be fraught with a silent, unspoken dread of unseen contaminants, a constant reminder of the pervasive filth. Having lightened the body, a process that was more obligation than relief, you must now fuel it for the arduous day ahead. Breakfast does not involve a steaming press of dark roast coffee or a plate of eggs over easy glistening with golden yolks. Forget the notion of a distinct leisurely morning meal with its own specific dishes. Instead, it involves a simple rough-hewn wooden bowl filled with pottage, yesterday's barley and turnip glue, thinned with water to make it stretch further, and thickened with whatever meager trimmings scraped off the chopping block from the scant food preparations of the previous day. This isn't a meal to savor. It's a pragmatic necessity, a continuation of the previous day's sustenance, a bland, unappetizing gruel whose flavor is dictated by scarcity rather than choice. The pot, a heavy, blackened cauldron perpetually hanging over the hearth, never truly empties. It is a living entity, a symbol of endless, frugal sustenance. Fresh vegetables, when they are available from the garden's fleeting bounty, are thrown in when they can be spared. Bones, a rare and cherished addition that adds a semblance of richness, are included when one is truly lucky. And when desperation truly sets in, even common weeds from the field are gathered and added to the simmering mixture. Imagine a cauldron of time itself, always bubbling, never cleaned, its interior a dark, encrusted testament to countless meals and the passage of generations. This endless stew pot, perpetually simmering over the hearth, serves as the household's primary source of calories. The flavors mingle and meld over days, weeks, even months, creating a complex, often unpleasant taste profile that is unique to each household and its shifting fortunes. The addition of weeds when desperate speaks volumes about the constant, gnawing struggle against hunger and the precariousness of food security that defines daily life. Any edible plant, no matter how humble or unpalatable, becomes a potential ingredient when stomachs are rumbling, and survival is the only objective. Beside the bowl, a silent testament to the ingenuity of necessity, lies a slab of trencher bread, rye baked so hard, so dense, that one strong gust of wind could easily repurpose it as a roof tile. Such is its unyielding rigidity. This is not the soft, airy, artisanal bread of modern bakeries. It's a dense, almost impenetrable loaf, designed for durability and longevity rather than palatability. A fundamental component of the diet. Its texture is so firm that it would crack teeth if eaten directly, rendering it largely inedible on its own. To make it remotely digestible, you must soften each bite, a laborious process of chewing and salivating before washing it down with a swallow of small ale, a weak, watery beer served to adults and children alike. This is not for pleasure, but out of grim necessity. Parasites frolic in uncooked water, making it a dangerous gamble. The ale, though barely containing enough alcohol to flutter a sparrow, has undergone a crucial process, boiling during the brew. This boiling, a simple act of heat application, renders it significantly safer than the unboiled, potentially contaminated water from the well or stream. The taste is likely unremarkable, a slightly fermented liquid that provides a modicum of hydration and calories. A far cry from the rich, complex brews of today. Meat? A rare and distant dream, perhaps glimpsed only on the most auspicious saints' feast days. A fleeting, joyous occasion. These are rare and cherished moments, a brief, tantalizing respite from the monotonous diet of grains and vegetables. The very thought of meat, its rich, savory taste, is enough to stir a flicker of excitement, a fleeting hope for a richer, more satisfying meal that will linger in the memory. Fruit? Only during the brief, glorious ripeness of summer, a quick burst of sweetness and freshness that arrives almost as soon as it departs, a poignant reminder of the fleeting bounty of nature. Spices, a pinch of even common pepper, costs a laborer's monthly rent, placing such exotic flavors firmly in the realm of unimaginable luxuries, reserved for the very wealthiest of nobles and distant merchants. Breakfast is not a joy. It is a negotiation with hunger, a silent daily battle against the gnawing emptiness in your stomach, and hunger rarely compromises. Every single mouthful is a calculated effort to extract maximum sustenance from minimal resources, a constant weary battle against the relentless demands of the body. Time to don your wardrobe, a singular concept indeed. You possess one and only one woolen tunic, its original color long since faded to the utilitarian brown-gray of forgotten mushrooms, a shade that effortlessly blends with the pervasive dirt and smoke of your daily existence. This is not a choice of outfits, but a stark, undeniable reality of extremely limited possessions, a constant reminder of your meager standing. The woolen tunic, your primary outer garment, is likely coarse and scratchy against the skin, offering basic warmth, but little in the way of comfort or softness. Its muted, indistinct shade, a testament to years of wear, grime, and relentless exposure to the elements, makes it virtually indistinguishable from the earth itself. Beneath this, you might wear one linen shift, a thinner, softer layer, if the brutal winter frosts haven't claimed it yet, rendering it too fragile or torn to wear. Underwear, as you know it, is optional, though not for reasons of liberation or personal preference. Simply, extra cloth is an expensive luxury, a commodity too precious to waste on hidden layers. The persistent lack of undergarments means constant chafing and discomfort, especially during physical labor, and the rapid, undeniable accumulation of body odor, a constant companion that you and everyone around you must endure. Your prized tunic has never, not once in its existence, met the cleansing embrace of soap. This is not due to a lack of desire, but because soap itself is a luxury, a precious commodity rendered from animal fat and ashes, far beyond the reach of a peasant household. Instead, it has been air cleansed, a rudimentary form of purification involving hanging it over the smoke of the hearth to chase away lice. This method, while marginally effective in temporarily dislodging some of the persistent parasites, is largely futile, as the lice generally treat smoke as nothing more than a momentary inconvenience, perhaps even a cozy bedtime story hour before they resume their relentless feasting. The acrid smell of wood smoke permeates your clothing, a constant companion that masks, but does not truly eliminate, the deeper, more pervasive odors of sweat, grime, and unwashed skin. It's a scent that clings to you, announcing your presence long before you are seen. Shoes, as a concept of supportive, comfortable footwear, barely exist. Most peasants, including yourself, go barefoot from the warming sun of April through the cooling breezes of October. The soles of your feet are not soft and pampered, but hardened by constant contact with rough, unforgiving ground, calloused, cracked, and often bleeding. They are acutely aware of every sharp stone, every treacherous patch of mud, every stray twig, every unyielding root that lies hidden beneath the surface. In winter, when the earth becomes a frozen, unyielding enemy, you wrap pitiful scraps of cloth around your feet, offering meager, almost negligible protection against the biting cold and damp, and desperately hope that frostbite chooses the neighbor first. These rudimentary foot coverings offer minimal defense against the profound chill, and frostbite, with its agonizing numbness and potential for amputation, is a constant, terrifying threat, capable of disabling or even killing. Even nobles, with all their supposed privilege, wear thin leather turn shoes that offer little solace, soaking through at the first puddle, leaving their feet just as cold and wet as any peasant's. Everyone's toes, from the lord to the serf, know the seasons intimately. They feel the scorching heat of summer, baking the earth, the numbing, bone-aching cold of winter, the damp, squelching misery of spring rains, and the rough, unyielding texture of the earth in all its harsh, unvarnished variations. If you value your peace of mind, dear modern listener, then I implore you, skip this paragraph. Turn away from the grim reality I am about to lay bare, for what follows is a testament to suffering that will make your own teeth ache in sympathetic agony. Brushing, as a routine habit of oral hygiene, is simply not a concept. Tooth powder, a rudimentary concoction of crushed salt and mint, is known only in the rarefied, educated circles of wealthy city dwellers or enlightened monasteries. But it remains an utterly unthinkable luxury for villagers like yourself. The very idea of devoting precious time and scarce resources to cleaning your teeth is absurd in a world where survival is a daily battle. Consequently, the state of your teeth, even at the young age of 23, is likely deplorable, discolored, stained by years of ale and coarse food, often chipped or broken. Sugar, the silent destroyer of modern dentistry, remains a costly and exotic commodity, rarely if ever gracing the tables of common folk. Yet, even without its insidious presence, your diet is perfectly engineered to dismantle your oral health. Coarse, unrefined bread, with its gritty texture, relentlessly grinds down your precious enamel, the protective outer layer of your teeth, leaving them vulnerable and exposed. The unavoidable grit in your daily pottage, a byproduct of rudimentary milling processes, carves microscopic grooves and fissures into the surfaces of your teeth, creating perfect hiding places for food particles and nascent decay. And the ever-present ale, though weak, contributes its own insidious assault. The mild acids contained within it slowly, steadily finish the job, eroding what little enamel remains. The combined effect is a relentless, brutal assault on your teeth, leading to constant pain and rapid deterioration. When the pain, a constant throb, eventually eclipses all tolerance, when the misery of an infected tooth becomes too great to bear, you have but one recourse. You visit the barber surgeon. This individual is not a specialist, but a true jack-of-all-trades, a multi-hyphenate who, with equal lack of ceremony, trims beards, performs crude haircuts, shaves faces, and, when absolutely necessary, lances abscesses or, God forbid, extracts teeth. He seats you on a crude, unstable stool, bracing your jaw with a meaty, unyielding forearm that smells faintly of blood and stale ale. Then, with terrifying precision, he inserts iron pincers, blackened from yesterday's hearth fire and utterly devoid of any pretense of cleanliness, deep into your mouth. He counts to 1, never, ever to 3, for that would be a mercy. Then, with a swift, brutal yank, tears the offending tooth from its socket. No anesthetic, not even a whisper of something to dull the searing agony. No antibiotics, no magic potion to ward off the inevitable infection that will follow. The pain is instantaneous and excruciating, a searing, blinding agony that reverberates through your skull, leaving you gasping and disoriented. The metallic taste of your own blood fills your mouth as the tooth is ripped from its socket, a visceral reminder of the brutality you've just endured. Without antibiotics, infection is an almost guaranteed consequence, turning a moment of temporary, brutal relief into a potential death sentence. If infection follows, as it often does, escalating into a fever or a debilitating abscess, a priest may arrive at your bedside sooner than any lasting relief, preparing you for a journey to the afterlife. The new, raw gap in your gums whistles softly when you breathe, a constant, melancholy lullaby reminder that medieval dentistry is not a science, not a comfort, but an open, festering question answered with the brutal certainty of pliers. The lingering phantom ache, the metallic taste of dried blood, and the constant whistling sound are daily reminders of your painful encounter with medieval medicine, a silent testament to the suffering that defines your world. You leave the hut, the low doorway forcing you to stoop and step into the pre-dawn chill. Mist clings heavily to the furrows of the plowed fields, shrouding the landscape in a ghostly, ethereal veil. Oxen, harnessed and ready, snort plumes of white vapor into the frigid air, their heavy breaths a rhythmic counterpoint to the silence. Crows, those ancient gossips of the hedgerows, have already gathered, their harsh caws cutting through the stillness, discussing the day's potential pickings. The morning air, though undeniably cold, carries the earthy scent of the fields, a primal aroma that signals the beginning of another day's relentless toil. Your task list for the day is as long as daylight itself, stretching endlessly before you like the horizon. Mend the boundary fence, a never-ending battle against the encroaching wild. Weed the endless barley rows, a meticulous, back-breaking task that demands constant vigilance. Haul water from the distant well or stream, a heavy, repetitive chore that strains your muscles. Patch the perpetually leaking thatch roof, a Sisyphean struggle against the elements. Spread muck, manure, across the fields, its pungent aroma a promise of future harvests. drive the ever-opportunistic geese from the tender bean shoots, and dig heavy, damp clay for the manor bake-oven, a communal chore that benefits the entire village but adds to your daily burden. There is no wage for your efforts, no coin or payment for your time. Your compensation is simply the right to keep a fraction of what you manage to grow, a meager portion that barely sustains you, and the right to remain on land you will never, ever own. You are bound to it, a living extension of its earth. Children older than 5, their faces smudged with dirt and sleep, already trail behind their parents, carrying half-sized tools carefully crafted for their small hands. They are learning early, through relentless repetition and direct experience, that playtime is a concept for the next century, a luxury utterly unknown in your harsh reality. Childhood, as we understand it, is a truncated period of apprenticeship, a swift, brutal initiation into the harsh realities of adult labor and survival. Their small hands are already calloused, their bodies weary from long hours of stooping and carrying, their faces streaked with dirt and fatigue. Women, often carrying infants slung against their backs or held close in shawls, perform equal hours in the field alongside the men, their strength and endurance just as vital. But their day does not end there. They then face double hours at home, a relentless, unpaid second shift, grinding grain with heavy stone querns, a repetitive, muscle-aching task, spinning raw wool into thread, their fingers constantly busy, nursing infants, a tender act intertwined with the demands of their labor, and praying constantly that the pottage doesn't scorch over the fire, a catastrophic loss of the family's primary sustenance. Sundays theoretically offer a respite, a day of rest and devotion, but harvest season, with its urgent demands, recognizes no Sabbath, forcing families into the fields from dawn till dusk, ensuring the survival of the village through sheer willpower. If you are fortunate enough to practice a trade, perhaps a blacksmith, his arms muscled from constant hammering, a tanner, forever immersed in the pungent, unsavory process of preparing hides, or a cooper, meticulously shaping wooden staves into sturdy barrels, the pattern shifts slightly. Your anvil rings with the rhythmic clang of hammer on hot iron, creating tools and implements vital to the community. Hides soak in foul-smelling dog urine, transforming raw skin into usable leather. Barrels tighten over steaming, pliable hoops, ready to hold ale or grain. But the underlying rhythm remains the same. Sunrise to sunset, 6 days weekly, a relentless, unbroken cycle that feels as if it will continue perhaps forever. There is no concept of weekends, no designated time off, no paid leave. The very word vacation will not enter the English language for another 300 years, a testament to how utterly foreign the idea of a break from work, a period of leisure and relaxation, is to your medieval mind. It is a concept beyond the wildest dreams of a medieval laborer, an unimaginable luxury. The climate in this year of our Lord 1307 is not a benign backdrop, but a relentless, unforgiving tutor, constantly reminding you of your vulnerability and dependence on its whims. In winter, the very air inside your humble hut offers little comfort. The interior registers just a few degrees warmer than the biting, merciless air outside, a stark reminder of the thin barrier between you and the elements. Frost, a delicate yet pervasive artist, etches intricate patterns on the wooden bedpost, outlining the rough grain of the timber. Your breath, heavy with fatigue, looks like ghostly ribbons unfurling in the frigid air, each exhalation a visible testament to the profound cold that seeps into your bones. Firewood, your sole defense against this pervasive chill, is a precious and scarce commodity. Forest commons, communal woodlands where villagers might gather fallen branches, are strictly regulated by the lord of the manor, his reeves constantly watchful. Poaching even a few sticks can draw severe fines, punishments that can cripple a family already living on the edge of destitution. You layer 2 tunics, perhaps even 3 if you are lucky enough to possess them, yet your fingertips stiffen around the rough wooden spoon as you try to eat, the cold penetrating even these meager defenses. Frostbite, with its insidious numbness and potential for agonizing amputation, is not diagnosed with medical precision. It is simply accepted as a grim, almost inevitable reality of winter survival. Its victims, a common sight in the village. Then comes summer, and the hut, instead of a meager shelter, transforms into a suffocating clay oven. The small enclosed space, combined with the constant radiating heat from the hearth fire, which must still burn for cooking even in summer, creates an oppressive, stifling atmosphere that is almost unbearable. Smoke from the hearth, heavy and acrid, wanders lazily in the stagnant air because, crucially, chimneys haven't been invented locally. The constant presence of this smoke fills the hut with a persistent, hazy pallor, stinging your eyes and irritating your lungs, a chronic assault on your respiratory system. And with the heat and humidity, life truly thrives. Not yours, but the countless tiny creatures that torment you. Lice flourish, multiplying with alarming speed, their constant itching a maddening distraction. Flies in buzzing, relentless swarms infest every moist surface, drawn to the sweat, the food scraps, the animal droppings, constantly landing, crawling, and spreading filth. Sweat gathers in rivulets beneath your heavy woolen tunic, clinging to your skin, yet you dare not disrobe beyond modesty's narrow allowance, for revealing too much skin is a grave social transgression. Sunburn peels agonizingly from your shoulders, raw and painful, a constant source of discomfort. Heatstroke, a very real danger in the unyielding summer sun, is not recognized as a medical condition, but is tragically misread as a demonic visitation, a curse from an unseen malevolent spirit, leading to desperate, often useless rituals rather than practical remedies. Whether it is the glittering, deadly icicles of winter or the buzzing, irritating horseflies of summer, the weather teaches a profound, inescapable humility. It is a constant, powerful force that dwarfs your individual existence, dictating the rhythm of your life, demanding constant adaptation and resilience. And still, regardless of the sun's scorch or the wind's bite, the plow waits. The land, unforgiving and unyielding, demands its due, its endless cycle of planting and harvesting, growth and decay, overriding all personal discomfort or hardship. You feel a profound aching thirst, a dryness in your throat that no small ale seems to fully quench. The brook, appearing so clear and inviting, gurgling pleasantly beside the lane, offers a deceptive promise of refreshment. But your instincts, honed by generations of harsh experience, tell you to be wary. Upstream, perhaps just around the bend in the winding current, a pig corpse bloats gently, its putrefying flesh seasoning the entire current with invisible yet deadly bacteria like salmonella. The deceptive clarity of the water belies the unseen dangers lurking within. a silent microscopic killer waiting to strike. Wells, sunk deeper into the earth, are generally considered a safer bet, a more reliable source of potable water. Yet even they are not foolproof. Surface runoff, laden with agricultural waste, animal droppings, and human effluent, carries contaminants through cracked stone linings and permeable soil, slowly seeping into the well water. Boiling water, the simplest and most effective method of purification, costs precious fuel, firewood, or animal dung that you simply cannot spare for such a luxury. Every twig, every piece of dried dung, is a resource painstakingly gathered and reserved for cooking the indispensable pottage or providing minimal warmth. Thus, beer, specifically the weak, watery small ale, remains the hydration of choice for everyone, from nursing infants to the village elders. It is not a beverage chosen for its taste or its intoxicating properties, which are negligible. Rather, it is chosen out of grim, practical necessity. The brewing process, which involves boiling the water, kills most of the harmful bacteria and parasites that infest untreated sources. It is a safer, albeit bland, alternative to the perilous gamble of well or stream water. The mild alcoholic content, barely enough to flutter a sparrow's wings, might also offer a slight numbing effect, a tiny fleeting respite from the endless aches and pains that define daily life. Bathing, a topic riddled with theological debates and medical superstitions. Some physicians, clinging to outdated theories, vehemently argue that hot baths open pores, thereby inviting insidious plague vapors directly into the body, a terrifying prospect in an era haunted by pestilence. Communal bathhouses, once a popular feature in Roman times and early medieval towns, have sadly acquired reputations for immorality, seen as breeding grounds for vice and temptation. This moral panic has prompted local bishops and concerned authorities to shutter them, removing what little communal hygiene infrastructure existed. When you truly cannot bear your own aroma any longer, when the accumulated grime and sweat become an intolerable burden, even to yourself, you may embark on the laborious process of personal cleansing. This involves heating a precious kettle of water over the hearth, then mixing it with cold water in a small, rough wooden tub. You bathe, quickly, almost frantically, because 5 other relatives, all equally desperate for a modicum of cleanliness, wait their turn, their patience wearing thin. You step out, momentarily cleaner, though the water in the tub now resembles a thin, murky stew, thick with the day's accumulated grime. The room, unventilated and damp, fills with steam, which condenses on the cold, rough walls and, ironically, encourages the growth of fungi and mildew, contributing to the damp, musty atmosphere. Cleanliness in this era is a relative concept, a fleeting state of grace perpetually threatened by the overwhelming realities of medieval life. But hope, that persistent, resilient human quality, is essential. The hope that this fleeting moment of cleanliness might somehow stave off illness, or at least provide a brief psychological respite from the constant discomfort. Something aches deeper than mere fatigue, a persistent, gnawing pain that signals something more serious. Perhaps a raging fever burning through your veins, or a festering splinter, an insidious entry point for infection that refuses to heal. You consult the physics, the manor's designated medical practitioner, if the manor's income and your social standing allows for such a luxury. Otherwise, you turn to the village wise woman a repository of traditional knowledge passed down through generations, whose remedies are born of observation, superstition, and anecdotal experience. The initial diagnosis, regardless of the practitioner, begins with the prevailing medical theory of the age, the imbalance of the four humors. This ancient Greek theory, which posits that health is maintained by a delicate equilibrium of four primary bodily fluids: blood, phlegm, yellow bile, and black bile, forms the cornerstone of medieval medical understanding. Each humor is associated with specific qualities, seasons, and temperaments, and any deviation from their perfect balance is believed to manifest as illness. Is there an excess of blood, perhaps indicated by a ruddy complexion or a feverish flush? The common and often dangerous treatment is bloodletting. You are bled, either with the application of squirming leeches, their mouths latching onto your skin to draw out the offending fluid, or by a careful, often crude, slice near the elbow, the vital fluid allowed to drain into a bowl. This procedure, believed to restore humoral balance by removing the perceived excess, often leaves the patient weaker and more susceptible to infection. Too much black bile, perhaps indicated by melancholy or digestive issues. A harsh laxative of senna and vinegar is forced down your throat, a foul-tasting concoction intended to expel the perceived excesses from the body, often with debilitating and painful side effects. Surgeries, rudimentary and terrifying, do exist. Desperate amputations performed to save a limb from gangrene, or crude extractions of arrows embedded in flesh. But in these procedures, speed replaces sterility. The urgency of the situation, the patient's rapidly deteriorating condition, often overrides any concern for hygiene or cleanliness, leading to alarmingly high rates of infection and death. The tools of the trade, crude saws, rusty knives, iron pincers, might glint in the dim light, not because they are polished or sanitized, but because the last patient's gore has dried to a thin, telltale film on their surfaces. The sight of these uncleaned instruments, still encrusted with the remnants of previous procedures, adds a grotesque layer of horror to the already brutal realities of medieval surgery. Pain management relies on opium if, by some miracle, it is available, a rare, expensive commodity, often reserved for the very wealthiest or most desperate cases. If not, prayer, fervent and desperate, is the only recourse, a plea for divine intervention to dull the agony. Recovery depends less on the skill of the practitioner or the efficacy of the treatment than on sheer, unadulterated luck and the stubborn, often miraculous resilience of your immune system. Germ theory, the revolutionary understanding of microscopic organisms as agents of disease, sleeps centuries away, a distant scientific dream yet to be conceived, dreaming of the wonders that microscopes will one day reveal. Your world is one where disease is a mysterious, often supernatural force, and treatment is a desperate gamble against overwhelming odds. Dusk settles, shrouding the village in a deeper gloom, and the air grows heavy with the scent of cooking fires and damp earth. Your stomach, a constant companion throughout the day, reminds you with a persistent gnawing ache that breakfast tasted of resignation, a mere whisper of sustenance. Tonight's menu is, predictably, again pottage, its familiarity a dull comfort. This evening, however, it's a little thicker, perhaps thanks to the addition of cabbage cores, lending it a slightly more substantial texture and a faint, bitter greenness. If fortune has truly smiled upon your family, if a neighbor's pig was butchered recently, There might even be a small, coveted ribbon of pork fat, its savory richness a rare and cherished luxury that transforms the mundane meal into a small celebration, a fleeting moment of culinary pleasure. The bread, still rock-like, an unyielding brick of rye, must be relentlessly soaked in the broth of the pottage until it is soft enough to dent with your weary molars, a slow, deliberate process of making it palatable. Food safety as a concept dances precariously on a razor-thin knife edge, a constant game of nutritional roulette where the stakes are life and death. Meat, if you are lucky enough to acquire it, is salted for preservation, but not always sufficiently, leaving it vulnerable to spoilage and unseen bacterial growth. Fish, smoked to extend its shelf life, may still harbor insidious mold creeping across its surfaces, yet hunger often overrides any concerns about its edibility. Perhaps most terrifyingly, the very rye that forms the staple of your bread may harbor ergot fungus, an insidious parasitic growth that, when consumed, delivers horrifying convulsions and vivid, often terrifying hallucinations. Known locally as holy fire due to the burning sensation it produces, the victims writhe in agony, their limbs contorting, their minds lost in a nightmare world. Their suffering attributed to supernatural causes rather than a microscopic fungus. Yet, despite these terrifying possibilities, hunger trumps fear. The overwhelming visceral need for sustenance, the desperate desire to fill the gnawing emptiness in your stomach, overrides any lingering doubts or fears about the quality or safety of the food. You swallow, chase the coarse mixture with another gulp of ale, and hope. Hope, a fragile but powerful force, becomes your silent companion, a desperate prayer against illness and death, a fervent wish that this meal, like so many others, will not be the one to betray you. As the long day finally yields to night, the familiar, solemn tolling of the church bell once again cuts through the evening air, calling the faithful to vespers. You shuffle out of your hut and make your way to the cold stone nave, its vast, echoing interior dimly lit by the sputtering, flickering glow of tallow dips, their flames dancing like tired bees struggling to stay aloft. Faith, in this world of 1307, is not a private hobby, a personal preference, or something relegated to a single day of the week. It is the very spine of society, an omnipresent, unyielding force that permeates every aspect of daily life, shaping beliefs, influencing decisions, and providing the unquestioned framework for understanding the world, from the smallest harvest to the grandest cosmic mysteries. The liturgical calendar, a rigid, unbending structure, fills your year with an endless succession of holy days, fast days, and feast days, each with its own specific rituals, prayers, and dietary restrictions. All these observances are meticulously supervised by the local clergy, who serve as the sole interpreters of God's Word and the moral arbiters of the community. This immense power stems from a crucial fact: the Bible exists only in Latin, a sacred, incomprehensible tongue, and your literacy, if it exists at all, ends at recognizing the large, blocky X you scrawl on the tithe ledger, a mark signifying your meager contribution. This linguistic barrier ensures your complete dependence on the priest for spiritual guidance, for understanding the complexities of Scripture, and for discerning God's will. And in return for this spiritual guidance, the Church demands its due. 10% of your grain, your precious eggs, your painstakingly gathered honey, your hard-won wool, whatever you produce from the unforgiving land, and your strenuous labor, goes to the church. This tithe, a significant and often crippling portion of your already meager harvest, is a mandatory contribution, a tangible manifestation of your unwavering devotion and obedience. In return, the priest absolves your sins, a vital service in a world terrified of eternal damnation. He warns of hell's roaring furnaces and the torments that await the unrepentant sinner, a powerful deterrent against moral transgression. And occasionally, in his sermons, he dispenses what he presents as fascinating divine news, such as the pronouncement that God smote the crop because women gossiped during Mass, subtly reinforcing societal norms and the Church's authority over all aspects of life. You bow your head in dutiful submission, murmur the Latin responses you've learned by rote, cross yourself with a practiced hand, and shuffle home, your soul feeling perhaps slightly lighter, absolved of its minor transgressions, but your purse undeniably slightly emptier, the spiritual comfort bought at a very real economic cost. The church is not just a building, it is a system, a power, a constant watchful presence in every moment of your waking life. If you are female in 1307, your existence is inextricably intertwined with a unique set of challenges and profound burdens, often more arduous and perilous than those faced by your male counterparts. While you labor tirelessly alongside men in the fields, your day is far from over when the sun sets. Your life's trajectory is largely predetermined by societal expectations and biological realities. Marriage contracts may bind you at the tender age of 14, often arranged by your family for economic or social expediency, with little to no regard for your personal wishes. This early marriage swiftly transitions you from girlhood to womanhood, accompanied by the immediate and relentless expectation of childbearing. Childbirth itself may visit you a dozen times, perhaps more throughout your fertile years. A constant, terrifying gamble. Each labor, a monumental test of endurance, arrives without the slightest hint of anesthetic or pain relief. Midwives, those invaluable women who attend births, possess a knowledge of herbs and traditional remedies, and they offer prayers to the saints, but they have no understanding of antisepsis or modern medical procedures. The birthing chamber, often a cramped, unhygienic space, becomes a crucible of pain and risk. The lack of sterile practices leads to a horrifyingly high incidence of complications, infections, and fatalities for both mother and infant. Consequently, many mothers or their precious infants meet the saints before they ever have the chance to meet middle age, their lives tragically cut short by the perils of procreation. The fear of death in childbirth is a constant, terrifying shadow hanging over every pregnancy, a grim reality that shapes the hopes and anxieties of every woman. However, should you survive your husband, widowhood offers a fleeting whisper of autonomy, a fragile taste of independence. You might gain control of your dowry land, a sliver of property that, for a brief time, is truly your own. Yet this newfound freedom is a double-edged sword, fraught with danger. Accusations of witchcraft swirl quickly and menacingly around women who live outside direct male supervision, for an independent woman is often seen as a dangerous, unnatural anomaly. Any perceived deviation from accepted norms, any display of unusual knowledge, such as herbal lore passed down through generations, a sharp tongue, or merely a stubborn, independent streak, might draw the suspicious, fearful gaze of your neighbors and the stern attention of the authorities. Punishments for such alleged transgressions vary wildly, from a harsh penitential pilgrimage, a grueling journey designed to atone for sins, to the terrifying public humiliation of a ducking stool in the village pond, where you are repeatedly submerged in the frigid, often filthy water, a brutal spectacle designed to break your spirit and serve as a warning to others. Still, despite these immense hardships and the ever-present dangers, women are the silent, enduring backbone of the household and the community. They sing lullabies, weaving comfort and tradition into the fabric of daily life. They meticulously weave cloth, transforming raw wool into essential garments. They trade their modest wares in bustling markets, contributing vital income to their families. And they tell stories by the flickering hearthlight, passing down history, wisdom, and lore to the next generation, ensuring the continuation of their culture. Resilience, that profound, unyielding capacity to endure and persevere in the face of adversity, is their most precious and enduring dowry to their daughters, a legacy of strength that transcends property or material wealth. In the brutal calculus of 1307, law equals power in its most visible, undeniable form, a stark display of control over the bodies and lives of the populace. The theft of a mere loaf of bread, an act born of desperate hunger, may earn you a public whipping, its sting an agonizing lesson in societal order, or in a crueler display of justice, the public amputation of a hand, a permanent and debilitating punishment designed to instill terror and serve as a gruesome deterrent. Gossip, that pervasive whisper of human society, particularly when directed at women, can place an iron scold's bridle, a metal mask with a spiked tongue that presses painfully onto your own, over a woman's head for hours of public shame and agonizing silence. A barbaric tool for controlling and silencing perceived female insolence. Accusations of heresy, a grave offense against the all-powerful church, trigger terrifying trials by ordeal. You might be forced to plunge your arm into boiling water to retrieve a stone, then made to wait 3 agonizing days. If the wound festers, as it almost invariably will without sterile care, your guilt is proven by divine judgment. Even more chilling are the float tests for witchcraft, a grim community spectacle where accused women are bound and thrown into water. If you sink, you are innocent and drown. If you float, you are guilty and executed. The injustice of these tests is absolute, a no-win scenario where death is the only certain outcome. Beyond the formal brutal legalities, violence is a pervasive, almost background noise in medieval life, a constant hum of potential conflict that can erupt at any moment. Quarrels between neighboring villages, perhaps over disputed grazing land, or a perceived insult, can escalate rapidly and viciously into mass staff fights, crude but deadly battles fought with agricultural tools. Lords quick to defend their honor or expand their territories resolve disputes not with legal arguments, but with their own armored retinues, heavily armed knights and their retainers, turning minor disagreements into bloody skirmishes. Kings, ever hungry for power and land, summon levies of reluctant peasants and eager knights for far-off wars, grand campaigns often flagged as righteous crusades against infidels, or necessary border corrections to expand their dominion. These are not distant, abstract conflicts. Your own village may be required to contribute men and resources, bringing the reality of war directly to your doorstep. The sight of blood on the ground, whether it be from a chicken thief publicly whipped, a brawling peasant, or a fallen knight in battle, dyes history a familiar, indelible shade. It is a constant, stark reminder of the fragility of life and the ever-present threat of harm. Everyone, from the youngest child to the oldest elder, learns out of sheer necessity to avoid trouble, to keep their heads down, to remain unnoticed, and yet, in this brutal world, everyone eventually fails, drawn into the inescapable orbit of violence and suffering. In the harsh realities of 1307, statisticians in heaven, if such beings exist, would record an average life expectancy near 35 years, a figure that, on the surface, might suggest a life of moderate length. However, this average is deeply and tragically skewed by the brutal attrition of infancy. A harrowing reality dictates that 2 of every 5 children do not see their 5th birthday. They succumb to myriad childhood diseases, measles, whooping cough, dysentery, or simply fail to thrive in a world devoid of proper nutrition and hygiene. This horrific infant mortality rate means that surviving childhood is, in itself, a monumental achievement, a testament to sheer luck and a resilient constitution. If by some miracle of fate and fortitude you do manage to survive the perilous gauntlet of infancy and early childhood, your prospects improve, but only marginally. You may reach 40, perhaps even 50, but the accumulated ailments and ravages of a life of relentless toil begin to manifest with brutal certainty. Arthritis, that crippling inflammation of the joints, may begin its insidious ache as early as 25, making every movement a painful struggle. Cataracts, the clouding of the eyes, might begin to obscure your vision by 30, slowly dimming your world. And toothlessness, a grim testament to medieval dentistry and diet, often sets in by 35, forcing you to gum down your hard bread and pottage. A minor cut, a simple scrape from a thorn or a tool, something you would barely notice in the modern world, can breed sepsis, a systemic infection that spreads rapidly through the body, proving fatal within days. While the full horror of the bubonic plague looms in the next century, waiting to decimate populations on an unprecedented scale, your world is far from free of pestilence. Local outbreaks of dysentery, a rampant killer spread by contaminated water. Measles, a highly contagious and often deadly childhood disease. And various forms of sweating sickness, acute, febrile illnesses, claim victims with chilling regularity each year, their invisible claws reaching into every household. When the inevitable finally arrives, funerals happen swiftly, a grim necessity dictated by practicalities and the fear of lingering disease. The cold, unyielding earth, though it slows decay, cannot halt its relentless progress. Parish churchyards, often the most manicured and consecrated ground in the village, are perpetually crowded with a dense thicket of simple wooden crosses, each one marking a lost life. Names, painstakingly carved or painted onto the wood, quickly fade and vanish as the relentless weather strips away the paint and erodes the wood, rendering individual identities anonymous, lost to the relentless march of time. Families remember their departed loved ones not through written records or permanent memorials, but through oral tales, whispered stories, and shared memories that are passed down through generations. These stories, fragile and ephemeral, serve as a living legacy, keeping the deceased alive in the collective memory, until those very storytellers themselves slide inevitably into the same cold soil, their voices silenced, their memories fading with them. Death in this world is not a distant, abstract concept to be feared. It is a familiar shadow, a constant, undeniable presence that walks alongside every living soul, an ever-present reminder of the fragility and brevity of existence. Night drapes the village again, a deep, velvety darkness unmarred by electric lights, save for the distant, flickering glow of a few hearth fires and the cold, unfeeling light of the moon. You lie on your straw tick mattress, the rough, familiar chaff now feeling, by contrast, almost welcoming, its discomfort dulled by the profound, bone-deep exhaustion of the day. Today did not kill you. This is the silent, unstated victory of each passing day. The simple fact of continued existence, a triumph against overwhelming odds. The goat coughs softly in the corner, a rhythmic, guttural sound. Fleas, those persistent, microscopic companions, continue their relentless nibbling. And the damp, insidious chill climbs steadily up the rough, unplastered walls of your hut, seeking out any remaining warmth. Yet, your eyelids sag, heavy with the sheer weight of labor's exhaustion, a physical weariness that demands sleep. Here, dear modern listener, I invite you to open your own eyes, if only for a heartbeat. Allow your gaze to drift around your surroundings. Glance at the electric clock on your bedside table, its gentle digits glowing with an unwavering, precise light. At the solid pane of glass in your window that effortlessly keeps the biting wind outside, an invisible yet impenetrable barrier. At your thermostat, steady and unwavering, maintaining a perfect, comfortable temperature within your home. At the tap from which water flows, clear, cold, and utterly parasite-free, a seemingly simple miracle you take for granted. Consider the bar of soap in your bathroom, its fragrance a luxury, its cleansing power profound. The analgesic in your drawer, a tiny pill capable of banishing aches and pains. The dentist, a phone call away, offering comfort and care instead of brutal extraction. Humanity, resilient and relentless, crawled through centuries defined by splinters in their skin, the pervasive haze of wood smoke in their lungs, and the constant threat of death, enduring unimaginable hardships to painstakingly forge and gift you these mundane miracles. The journey from the harsh realities of 1307 to the pervasive comforts of the 21st century was a long, arduous one, marked by countless struggles, ingenious discoveries, and incremental yet revolutionary advancements. If comfort ever feels boring, if the ease of your life ever seems dull or uninspiring, remember that boredom itself is a profound privilege, a luxury born directly of safety, security, and the absence of constant, life-threatening struggle. Thank you for sharing this slow, immersive walk through a single, ordinary, yet truly extraordinary medieval day. If your eyelids are now heavy, weighed down by the imagined toil and discomfort, let them close. The story, having been told, will wait patiently in your memory. Should you wish for more nocturnal wanderings through plague-ridden ports, shrouded in fear, across frozen Viking decks buffeted by icy winds, or along soot-black Victorian streets echoing with the clamor of a nascent industrial age, then gently press that subscribe button so the next tale arrives softly in your feed, a whisper from the past. Until then, may your blankets be utterly bug-free, your water pure and clean, your breakfast warm and nourishing, and your dreams, mercifully, blissfully, short on lice. Sleep well, traveler. The bell here is silent now, its work done, and the night hums on, carrying the echoes of a distant past.